Okay, so I'm going to talk about the imperfect. We had already talked about when to use the imperfect versus when to use the preterite when we're talking about things that happened in the past. So I'm going to, or at least in the simple past. So I'm basically just going to show you how to form it, and it's really easy. You're going to do the same thing that you did in the present tense. When you have a verb like hablar, you have a stem and you have an ending. And remember, the ending is what is on, obviously, the end of the verb. So when you're conjugating, you keep the stem, you keep this part, the habla part, and you get rid of the AR. And for comer and escribir, you keep the com part and you get rid of the ER. And here you keep the escrib part and you get rid of the IR. Okay, so when you go through, you would write habla all the way down. And if you want to say, I used to speak Spanish with my grandma when I was a kid, I'd say yo hablaba. I add ABA to say I used to do it. If I wanted to say you used to speak Spanish, or ask, did you used to speak Spanish with your grandma when you were a kid? I'd add ABAS. Habas. If I wanted to say also, did you speak Spanish with your grandma when you were a kid? And I wanted to be more formal, like maybe the first time I was asking a peer, and the second time I'm asking, I don't know, maybe like Dr. Parker, who I should show some distance from, some respect. So I'd say, Dr. Parker, ¿hablaba usted con su abuela en español cuando eras joven? So I'd add ABA. And you notice that these endings are the same for the yo and the second person formal, and then you're going to see it again for third person. It's context that lets you know. So if I say yo siempre hablaba, because I said yo, you're going to know that it's me who's doing it. Él, if I want to say he always spoke Spanish with his grandma when he was little, él hablaba español con su abuelita cuando era pequeño, y ella siempre hablaba español con su abuelita cuando ella era pequeña. So those are the endings that you add for when those are your subjects. If I want to say we, like my brother and I, we always spoke Spanish with our grandma when we were little. Hablábamos. That's what I would be adding to the end. And for vosotros, you guys, hablabais. Did you all speak Spanish with your grandma? Hablabais. Did you all speak Spanish with your grandma from Latin America? I'd say hablaban. And they spoke Spanish with their grandma when they were little, hablaban. When I was a kid, I was a very picky eater, and I always liked to eat cheese sandwiches siempre for lunch. So para el almuerzo cuando era pequeña siempre comía sandwiches de queso. So I would keep the com part and I would add ia to each word, each er word that ends in e or verb that ends in er. If I wanted to say, did you eat cheese sandwiches? Comías sándwiches de queso cuando eras pequeño, or comía, or if I want to say he ate, comía. We used to always eat, my brother and I, we always ate cheese sandwiches for lunch when we were little. Siempre comíamos sándwiches de queso. Did you all always eat sandwiches de queso? If I'm in Spain, I'm going to say comíais. And if I'm in Latin America, I'm going to say comían. And they always eat cheese sandwiches. Siempre comían sándwiches de queso. And you'll notice over here that your IR endings are the same. So ERs and IRs have the same endings. You keep their stems, and then you add these endings. Okay, so let's do a little bit of practice. But before I do that, just to remind you, when you use, you're not going to be making a choice. All the verbs that I give you are going to be put into the imperfect. But just to remind you, the Spanish imperfect has three common English equivalents: the simple past, the past progressive, and the used to infinitive construction. So Rosario trabajaba en la tienda could be translated as Rosario worked at the store, Rosario was working at the store, and Rosario used to work at the store. You use the imperfect to describe repeated, habitual, or continuous action. So remember, we talked about that. If it's an action that has a definite beginning and end, you use the preterite. If it is repeated, it's something that you did over and over, like what I was saying up here. You know, I used to always eat cheese sandwiches for lunch when I was little. That's implying repetition. Every day for this whole time while I was a really little kid, I was always eating a grilled cheese sandwich. That is an action. The eating's an action, and it's continuous versus me saying I ate pizza for lunch yesterday. That would be in the preterite because it started just yesterday and was over yesterday. But if I'm telling you something that I did multiple times in the past, that's when I use the imperfect. With and Just note that the imperfect of I, like if you want to say there was, there were, is había. Okay. You use the imperfect to describe an event or an action in progress when another event or action takes place or is occurring in the imperfect. So if you're in the middle of doing something, then you're going to use that's going to be in the imperfect. So estábamos en la tienda cuando llegaron nuestras amigas. So we were already in the store when our friends arrived. So we were already in the middle of doing it. That's ing. Anytime you've got like ing, they put it, we were in the store when our friends arrived, or we were, if you're already in the middle of doing something, you're going to want it to be in the imperfect. And here, mientras Rosario compraba un bolso, Mauricio miraba los suéteres. So you could describe two things that are happening simultaneously. And if that's occurring, if it's in the middle of happening, you're still going to use the imperfect tense. And use the imperfect to describe characteristics or states of being in the past when no particular beginning or ending is implied in the statement. So like I said before, most of the time if it's a state of being, it's one of these, it's usually going to be in the imperfect. Only if there's something in there that lets you know that a change has happened do you put it in the preterite. So most of the time when you see states of being, you're going to put it in the imperfect. And it's also used with time and age, like telling what the hour is or how old someone is, you're going to use with the imperfect. Okay, and we'll get to the irregulars in just a minute. Okay, so let's do a little bit of practice. We're going to plug in the verbs into these sentences that are given, and then we're going to conjugate them correctly. So we've got hacer, which means to do or make, jugar, to play, ser, to be, and caminar, to walk. So de niño, yo blanco al fútbol con mis amigos en el parque los sábados. Probably makes most sense to pick jugar. Okay, so I'm going to pick, oops, let's make it red. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay, so then who is it that's doing this playing of football? It's me, right? Okay. So if it's me, the ending that I'm going to want to use is this one right here, that ABA. Okay, so let me put my verb back in here. Okay, so the first thing I'm supposed to do is get rid of that AR, which I'm going to do. And then because it's yo, I go up here and I'm supposed to add the ABA. And so that's what I add, and I get jugaba. De niño yo jugaba al fútbol con mis amigos en el parque los sábados. Después nosotros blanca la casa de mi amigo Miguel. Probably caminar. Afterwards we walked. So I'm going to put caminar. Okay. Okay, and so who's doing the walking? We are. Remember, if it's a statement, you usually find your subject before your verb. Okay, so let me plug back in my verb. The first thing I'm supposed to do is take off the ending, that AR, and if it's for nosotros, it's an AR verb. So here's nosotros, I go across. What I need is that habamos. Habamos. So, después nosotros caminábamos a la casa de mi amigo Miguel. Su madre siempre nos blank galletas de chocolate. Galletas de chocolate are, chocolate chip cookies. So she always made us chocolate chip cookies. So I'm going to pick hacer. Okay, and who's doing the making? You have to be careful here. The nos, remember, is a indirect object pronoun. That's for whom these cookies are being made, but who's actually making the cookies is the mom. And she's the same thing as ella. Okay, so let me put my verb back in here. Okay, I've got hacer. I'm supposed to take the ending off. This time it was an ER verb, so I look over here like comer. If it's for ella, here's ella, I go across and I'm supposed to write ella. Hacía. So, su madre siempre nos hacía galletas de chocolate. Ella blank muy simpática. What's left is ser. Okay, now ser is actually an irregular. Whoops, so not set. So let me go back out here and explain the irregulars. Okay, so you're actually lucky because in the imperfect tense there are only 3 irregulars. Okay, they are ir, ser, and bear. And this is how they're conjugated. If it's ir, instead of adding aba, abas, etc., you add iba, iba, which you use is iba, ibas, iba, ibamos, ibais, iban, iban. For ser, you use era, eras, era, éramos, erais, or eran. And for bear, the only thing that makes it irregular is it keeps the e. Veía, veías, veía, veíamos, veíais, veían. And that's it. That's all the irregulars that you have to worry about. Okay, so if we go back over here and we're trying to conjugate ser, oops. Go through and erase. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Let me go through and do this first. If we're trying to conjugate ser, who is it that's very nice? It's she, meaning that mother. And so if I look at my irregulars, here's she. I go across for ser, and it's era. So I'm going to get rid of ser and replace it with era. Okay. Now if I go down here, the next set I've got preparar, dormir, and mirar. Preparar means to prepare, dormir to sleep, mirar to watch. So anoche a las 10, Eduardo blank un sándwich en la cocina makes most sense that it's preparar. He prepared. Okay. Okay, so who's doing this preparing? It's Eduardo. And Eduardo is the same thing as él. So I put my verb back in here. Okay, I'm supposed to get rid of my AR, and for él, and an AR verb, if I go él, it should be aba, preparaba. Okay, un sándwich en la cocina. Marta y Teresa blank la televisión en la sala. What would they be doing with the television? Watching it. Mirar. Okay, who is it that's doing the watching? It would be, whoops. It would be Marta y Teresa, which is the same thing as ellas. So I'll put my verb, I take mirar. Then I'm supposed to take the AR off. I go up here and I find ellas, and it's an A-B-A-N that I would add, miraban. Okay. Y Juanito blank en su dormitorio, he's going to be sleeping, right? So I put dormir. Okay. And who's going to be doing the sleeping? It's Juanito, which is the same thing as él. Go put my verb back in here. Okay. First thing I'm supposed to do is take off my IR ending. This is an IR verb. So I go over here for él, across to IRs. It's an IA that I add, and I get dormía. So anoche a las 10 Eduardo preparaba un sándwich en la cocina. Ellas miraban la televisión en la sala. Y Juanito dormía en su dormitorio.